hope we're ready finally to go into the area that this whole celebration is all about, and that's B340. And so I'm not going to say too much here because I want to get you in the room and let you experience it for yourselves. So if you follow me this way.
There's no number on the wall.
You're sure you want to do this?
Wait, you gotta repeat that. Hang on. Hang on, you gotta repeat that. Let's see if I can sneak in. Oh, come on.
You're sure you want to do this?
Yes.
Is everybody sure? A show of hands.
Woo!
Okay, all right. Well, I want you to know I experience a vertigo every time I go into this cabin. I've had it on and off tonight until I am feeling the effects of it even now. But please, welcome to B340. On my behalf and on the behalf of our unseen guests, I welcome you. And I'll turn on a few more lights here so you can see how well furnished the cabin is. Custom mirror in the lot.
Does the Ouija board come along with your reservation?
The Ouija board does come along with your reservation. So anyone that would like to work the Ouija board tonight, or the crystal ball, or the tarot cards, is welcome.
I know how to do it. I know.
So the last one through the door, close the door.
This is a bit. Stay here.
All right. Yeah. Go ahead and close the door. We want it to be as intimate as possible there. So welcome to B340. This room has not been occupied since the mid-'80s, of course. And some of the occurrences that led to that was hotel guests checking into the room and complaining that the lights would go on and off behind themselves, that the water in the bathroom would start and stop. One housekeeper came into the room one day, and the beds in those days were on this side, and made the bed perfectly, and went outside into the alleyway to her cart to get some towels for the bathroom. And when she came back in, she found the bed that she had just made all rumpled up and crumpled up in the floor. And so she went and reported that, and at that point, with all of the guest complaints, or comments, I like to say instead of complaints, might have been complaints back then because people weren't as open-minded about paranormal activity as they are today. The company decided not to rent the room anymore, and it was turned into a series of offices. But over the last 20 years, I can tell you it was gutted to the floor. There was nothing in here. It was just, it looked very depressing. The psychic, Kim Russo, who works on that A&E television show, The Haunting of, came in here with soap opera star Kristen Renton. And Kim Russo walks through the door and is just overcome right from the start. And she says, "Oh my God, oh my God." And she walks around the room, and after a few minutes of just some of the strangest looks I've ever seen on a person's face, she looked at me and she said, "I believe someone was restrained and tortured here." That's neither here nor there. That's her perception, which we don't know. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. There's a story when the ship was at sea. Again, the bed was in the side of the cabin of a female passenger in mid-Atlantic, was awakened in the middle of the night. The covers had been pulled off of her, and there was a man in a dark suit or uniform at the foot of the bed. She immediately reached across and pressed the button to call the steward, whose pantry was just right over here. And the steward comes running over, and she says, "Did you see him? Did you see him?" And he says, "Madam, what are we talking about? Did you have a dream?" She says, "No, there was a man at the foot of my bed. He pulled the covers off of me." And he said, "Madam, I've been there the whole time. There's no one there." And so maybe whatever there is about Mary has been with Mary a very long time. If you think about it, I believe that this ship has a soul. Now, I'm a romantic about the ship. I've loved her my whole life. I'm 57 years old. I've loved her. I've known of her for 55 years. And the day King George launched the ship, he did say, "No longer will she be a number on the books, but a ship with a name in the world, alive with beauty, energy, and strength. And today we have the happy task of sending forth on her way the stateliest ship now in being. I mean, he gave this ship a life from the very start. And somebody else said something interesting that day. And her name was Lady Mabel Fortescue Harrison, and she was a well-known English psychic. They call it Fae. If you're Fae, that means you're psychic. And Lady Mabel made a comment and was carried in all the press that most of us will be gone when this takes place. But the ship launched today, called the Queen Mary, will know her greatest fame and popularity when she never sails another mile or carries another fare-paying passenger. And I can tell you, the ship carried 2.2 million people in peace, but since opening to the public here, we've seen 55 million guests in the 50 years that it has sat here in this berth. So there is some staggering truth to that utterance. And so, well, here we are. What do we talk about? I mean, do we know what's in B340? Absolutely not. Do I feel vertigo right now? Yes, I do. I felt it every time I walked in here all night long, and it's not comfortable for me. Other places I feel it in the ship or in the pool. I feel it also in the boiler rooms. It's a very concentrated thing right here, though. Whatever did happen, so we don't know. Also, there's some geographical anomalies here. Very close to the swimming pool is this cabin. As the crow flies, maybe we're 75 feet away from the pool. If you go 75 feet in the other direction, you go into the cargo holds where scores of German prisoners died from heat exhaustion during the Second World War when the ship was operating in the Red Sea. No air conditioning in this vessel. She's designed to carry 3,000 people, including the crew. Well, here you have 10,000 men being evacuated from northern Africa in a landlocked sea with boilers in the belly of the ship, boiling water at 700 degrees Fahrenheit. It was 110 degrees inside the ship. And many people were sick from the heat, and many did not make it. So we don't really know how many people died during the war on the Queen Mary. There's no records of it kept. We know about 50 some odd people died in peacetime, 2 or 3 accidents, and most from natural causes. But that is what it is. You know, if we'd like to turn the lights out, and it might have just a little bit more of an ambiance to it. If you over there would get all the lamps and the light on the wall, those of us over here will work to close these lights, and please turn the one off in the bathroom and the closet.
How do you turn the ones on the walls off?
There should be a switch over here somewhere on one side of the oh, wow, that's it. There you go. Okay, good. Well, so I think maybe most ships are haunted, but I think we notice it more here because this ship is the only ship like it left in the world. You'll never see a ship that had so much focus on getting it constructed. Captain Treasure Jones used to say of the Queen Mary that he felt that she had character, she had personality, but above all else, she was the closest thing to a living being that he had ever commanded, and that she even breathed. He would also say that you only had to will her to do something, and she did. And that's pretty strong words for a sea captain. The Queen Mary had 33 captains. Her very first captain, Sir Edgar Britton, actually died up in the captain's cabin. He had a stroke within 6 months of taking command of the ship because of the enormous strain of operating a ship like this. You know, other tragedies that happened in the ship, there was a young engineer that died in a watertight door down in Shaft Alley. I won't mention his name out of respect to him, but it's a well-known haunting here in the ship. He was found in the door like this at about 4:10 in the morning on the 10th of December, the 10th of July, 1966. That sort of suggests to me that he might have been murdered, and we don't know what happened. The door was found to be in perfect operating order. I will say this, that the ship had only made 3 voyages with this engineer in it, and it was the 3 voyages after one of the most notorious strikes to ever hit the British Merchant Navy. Literally, every merchant ship in England was still for 6 weeks, and it was the strike that would end the Queen Mary's career. because after that strike, Cunard had lost enough money that they could no longer afford to operate the ship. And so a lot of the crew may have felt that this young fellow, only in the ship since the strike, was a scab. And unions were very powerful back then and had some very willful people. So there are a lot of people with a lot of different thoughts on that. Some people think he was playing chicken with the door. I can tell you, no one would play chicken with a 2-ton door. It takes 30 seconds for that door to open and 30 seconds for it to close. And so it was found to be in good order. Then there's Second Officer Stark, which we've used his name quite a lot. He accidentally drank dry cleaning fluid. You may have been told about that. And he died from that injury just out in the alleyway over here. Another officer fell in rough weather down those stairs and died just out here. So there's been some death on board. There has, no doubt. But there's been life on board the Queen Mary. In this ship, during peacetime, there were 9 babies born in the ship. So a condensed bit of life has lived here. I've had some paranormal experiences in the ship myself. And the very first one was probably around 1985, early 1986. I was giving a tour along the belly of the ship in the boiler rooms and went to the collision bulkhead. If you're up on the main deck, on where the anchor chains are, you can look down and into this tank. It's called the forepeak, but there's no way to access it from inside the ship. It's the last watertight door, the first defense in case of a collision. Well, the Queen Mary was involved in a collision in 1942 with HMS Curacao. The cruiser had come out to meet the Queen Mary in the Irish Sea and escort her into Scotland. The cruiser, not conforming to the Queen Mary's zigzag, was drawn by the suction of the bow wave in the Queen Mary under the ship's bows and split in half. 338 men of the Royal Navy were either crushed, boiled by the steam in their boilers when they exploded, or chopped up in the Queen Mary's propellers. The rest of them that died in a burning sea, probably ingesting burning oil. So it was a horrific death for all of them. But as I was giving this tour that day, which is the point of impact for that collision, I began to hear breathing from the other side of the bulkhead. And at first it was very faint. I thought I was hearing things. And then slowly it became louder and more audible. And I finally just stopped talking and I looked at my guest and I could see in their eyes the fright. And I knew that they were hearing what I was hearing. And I was feeling it going down the back of my neck. You should have seen 3 adults clamber up 12 decks and sit on a bench under a lifeboat and wonder what has happened to them. I have never had anything like that happen to me before or since. Well, I can't say since because I've heard the breathing since, but never before. And so that was where it began. And before that, I never believed in ghosts. And I'm not sure that I know that I still believe that ghosts are people once lived. Maybe it's a reflection of what we were is what we see. But whatever it is here in the ship. But I've had them touch me. I've had them, I've heard one speak on the 31st of May 2011. My wife and I spent 3 nights in cabin M005 up on main deck. And about 8 o'clock in the morning, she went for coffee. And I felt my bed shake. I thought we'd had an earthquake. Because even though the Queen Mary's afloat, the gangways will jostle on the side of the vessel and it will make it shudder. As soon as it happened, I raised up, I looked around, the bed stops, and nothing in the cabin is moving. My uniform is hanging there, nothing is moving. It's just a dead silence, and it was unusually silent. And it affected me something on the inside. And at that point, I realized that something was about to happen. And I laid my head back down on the pillow, and I heard a young lady whisper into my left ear, and she said, "I'm so cold. I'm so very, very cold." I can assure you I was wide awake after that. But later on, in about August of that year, the Scottish shop, the lady that owned and ran it, found me in the main hall, and she said, "Oh, Commodore," she said, "I have a guest." And I never told her my story. I have a guest, and she's complaining that her mom's downstairs freezing to death in the cabin. Can you do something with the air for them? I said, "Sure, what number is it?" And she said, M001. And I immediately knew that it was the cabin, and I went and shot that vent. And the air coming out of that vent was 74 degrees. But sure enough, Mom is blue and freezing, and we had to have them moved. But so there are a lot of occurrences in the Queen Mary. People comment all the time. We have 10, 12 comments a week. We keep a ledger of cabins that we know that things, comments have been made. lights going on and off, music, a presence felt, someone sitting next to you. They think someone's sitting next to you. Why all this in the Queen Mary? One can only know. But I think it really goes back to the ship herself having a soul. And I think carrying so many powerful people with powerful personalities. And as we do go through our lives, I'll bet we do leave a reflection of something, especially those of us that have so much determination. But there are areas of the ship that I will not go by myself. I would never stay in this cabin here. And I've stayed in the Queen Mary 1,000 times over the last 30 years probably. But I will not stay here. And it's because I'm not comfortable here. I'm not comfortable here now. Others may understand it differently. Maybe what's in here might be more compatible with somebody else. We don't know. We don't understand spirits. But we're close to the pool. The pool is known, the dressing rooms in the pool are known to be a vortex into another universe. Or at least so Matt Schultz and psychics like Matt, Erica Frost, Peter, what was his name? I can't remember his name.
Peter James.
Peter James, thank you. Peter James commonly talked about the ghost in the ship. And, we didn't talk too much about it in the 80s, in the early 90s, because people really were afraid. But I think that we live in a time to where I think all of us are somewhat fascinated with stuff that we don't understand. And we want to know more. And I don't know if we'll ever know, but we might. Does anyone feel any vertigo or anything at all?
I feel a little
Unusual?
queasy, to be
I was
honest.
gonna say, I feel queasy
A little
too.
queasy.
Like
Good.
when I
Yeah.
came over and stood in this
Feel
corner.
anger.
Anger. That's what Kim Russo felt. Kim Russo felt anger and tragedy. I know I'm not comfortable. I've never been comfortable. Never been
Like
comfortable
throw-up-y?
bringing
Yeah, I
people
feel
in here on
throw-up-y.
a tour.
Yeah.
I feel a sharp pain in my chest, like really almost like it's like penetrating, like a sharp pain in my chest, and I feel like really sad.
Are you ultra sensitive to spirits?
I mean, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, you're younger, and I think that the younger you are, the more in tune with the spirit world you are, because you don't have as much luggage as we grow in our... No, seriously, as we grow up, we mature in ways. I mean, I know this sounds crazy, and I don't want to take this back into something crazy, but as a child, I had awareness at a very young age, and being raised in the South, I can remember lying in my bassinet and seeing an Indian in a loincloth walking up and down and looking at it, my mom and dad and I. My mom and dad would be in bed sleeping. But, I don't see things anymore, but I saw that, and I saw it over and over, so I know it wasn't my imagination. So, does anyone have any questions? Well, just remember, there is something about Mary, but I've never had a truly negative experience in the ship. I'm uncomfortable in here. There are places I don't like to go by myself. But all throughout her life, she was known as a happy ship. She was beloved more than any other ship in the fleet by her crew and passengers alike. So I hope that you'll take a bit of this legend and lore and allow the Queen Mary place in your heart and share her with others. And so that way, something so magnificent will be here for so many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've turned the lights on now.
We have a couple minutes.